How are we doing, YouTube? It's your friendly gamer SmartEntity here. So today I'm going to talk about modding of weapons in general. So this should basically teach you guys how to mod the vast majority of weapons because you mod most of them the same way. Basically, the way I see it, there are three categories. So first is your general modding. So things like Bolter Prime, Latron Prime, Brayton Prime, Burston Prime, all your standard weapons, you mod them one way. Another way is a crypt build, which is what you use for your Soma. And another one is the elemental considerations. So, things like Synapse, which have a pre-existing elemental, you need to mod them another way. So I'll start to talk about your standard modding. So for every weapon, you need serration and split chamber. Basically, there's no excuse not to use these. Unless you don't have the mod or the mod points for them, you should always use these in every situation. Another one I would consider essential is heavy caliber. Now, I know a lot of people, don't like the decrease in accuracy. But basically, in all your mid to high level engagements, you should always have heavy caliber. And basically, the way I see it is like this, right? Everything is a risk-benefit ratio, and in this situation, the benefit of the increase in 165% base damage just far outweighs the harm of a negative 55% accuracy. Now, there are some exceptions to this that I can understand, and that's basically your low level. So when I say low level, I pretty much mean, your solar map, your T1s, your T2s, unless you're doing long survival defense. Those I would consider low level. Your T3 sort of, 15 above survival, and 20 and above defense missions. Those I would consider high level. So all your low level, it's okay to use, to not use heavy caliber, just because you're gonna one-shot them anyway, right? But other than that, you should always have heavy caliber. Now, another mod that I should mention, I've said this, in my previous video, but I'll say it again. So with Speed Trigger, now this weapon increases fire rate by 60%, so it has massive potential in increasing DPS or damage over time. But I generally don't like to use this mod in some of the weapons, such as Border Prime, just because the damage increase you get from an extra mod is just more beneficial than increasing the speed of fire. And the reason is, if you can kill an enemy with one bullet, increasing the fire rate is not going to give you any benefit other than waste bullets, right? So, use something like Malignant Force in this case, give you that additional damage, allow you to kill enemies a couple levels, higher or a couple levels more. I just found to be more beneficial overall from experience. So in my previous Damage 2.0 video, I talked about using the different elemental combinations and how to best use them for each race. So against your tower and your Grenier, I like to use your ice and your toxin for viral, and your fire and your electricity for radiation. The main purpose is this combo, and then adding the Malignant Force to up the viral. Now, before I carry on, I just want to quickly talk about the Bane mods. So Bane mods at maximum rank gives you a increase in base damage across all units for that faction. So main thing to notice is just for that faction. So even if you're doing tower, you're finding corrupted heavy gunners, if you got Bane of Grenier on, that's not going to give you extra damage because it's considered corrupted and not Grenier, right? I don't like to use the Bane ones. I know in certain situations, in a lot of situations in fact, the Bane mods will give you a higher DPS. So if I take Malignant Force out now and then put in Bane of Grenier at max rank, it'll give me a higher damage. And at maximum rank, this is plus 30% damage, just to let you guys know, right? But I'm one of those guys that's a bit lazy. I like to have a good build. There's no perfect build for everything, unfortunately, but I like to have a decent build that does good damage against most races. and I just can't be bothered switching out the bangs. So I don't really like using bang mods. So so this is a Guardian Tower build that I found to be quite good for your low levels. I know for corrosive, it's quite important for your high level, against your heavy gunners, but I like to use this for your, all-purpose build, just because when I say high level, you gotta go to the sort of 40 and above levels, and you don't really do that often. So I like to use this build for Guardian Tower. For Corpus, you definitely want to get a magnetic up, and then you just have gas as sort of the other elemental, and you want to use high voltage to further up that magnetic damage for shields, for infested. Again, I was talking in my other video about how some people like to use corrosive and heat, but I still like to use the sort of gas magnetic, and then you up the toxin for the extra gas damage. That's just how I found it. And so to get all these mods on there for your maximum damage, you basically obviously need a catalyst, and you need 6 polarities. So Boulder Prime come with 2 polarity to begin with. You add 4 farmers to get your 6 polarities. So generally, the way that polarity work is, I know this one comes with the ice polarity, but normally, say if you don't have any pre-existing polarities, from my experience, the best way to add polarities is to add 4V and 2 bar, right? And that'll allow you to put your elementals, your heavy caliber on, your serration, and your split chamber. So despite what I said, basically I'll just show you guys my synapse. So this is quite a unique weapon in that it's electric elemental base damage, and it's a crit build weapon, right? So as you can see, I inefficiently polarized this weapon. I've got 7 formers on there right now. With this kind of setup, I could have got away with 6. The reason I got 7 on is because back in the day when when heavy caliber wasn't available, you could do a max sort of build with 5 polarities, but to do that you needed 3 bar and 2V. The 2V is for your serration and your split chamber, and the 3 bar is for your elementals, right? But then once heavy caliber came out, you needed 6 polarities to fit that heavy caliber in, and you can't get away with 3 bar and 3 bar and 3V. You needed 4V and 2 bar, because you may not use 3 elementals at the same time. So I had to put in another polarity. So as you can see, I have a negative one here. You could get away with 6 farmers if all you have is 3 bars. As you can see, I got quite a bit of excess here, but because of the weight damage 2.0 goes, sometimes you do need different elemental combinations. So that's why I put in it's the ice ones, which makes you need that sort of 7th polarity to counteract the negative polarity I've had. So to best mod a crit weapon, so this applies to your somas, your synapse. Basically, you need serration, heavy caliber, split chamber. These are always good essential mods to have. And then you need your point strike and your vital sense. Basically, the way point strike works is it brings your crit chance up. There's no benefit to getting over 100% crit, because 100%, right? You get 120%, it's still 100%. Like, you can't do more than 100% crit probability. So with Synapse, you only need 2 from the top, point strike, and you want your max vital sense. And then you basically want a hammer shot. So a max hammer shot on there to further that crit damage, and then you got 2 more polarities. And these are the ones that you want to fiddle around with your different elementals. I'm not going to talk about elementals again. But basically, these you want to use as your best elementals against each particular race. Now, just because of the way I format this, I probably will have to very inefficiently put in an 8th former, so everything will be polarized, just to give me the option of putting whatever polarity I want. Now I know this is inefficient, but just because of the way that different things were released at different times, and I've been maxing the weapon at each particular point in time. Initially it was very efficient, and as time went by, it became less and less efficient just because new content's being released. And when I first modded this or formatted this, it wasn't for the most current sort of efficiency. So that's basically how you want to mod your crit weapons. So serration, heavy caliber, split chamber, point strike. For Surma, you want that to be maxed. Hammer shot, vital sense, and then 2 more polarities for your best elemental combo. So that's basically your primary weapon. For your secondary weapon, now basically for secondary weapon, at this stage there is a top weapon, and that is a Brak. Now, the reason I said it is because a Brak just far out damages any other weapon in the game currently, single target wise. But this one is not a long range weapon, it's a short range weapon. If you want a long range weapon, I'd probably go with a Murloc. Now, don't get me wrong, guys, you can't, fast fire the Murloc. The Murloc have very good accuracy if you're doing one shot, right? If you do continuous shot, you have extremely high recoil, which makes it bad. So what you want to do is one shot, wait, one shot, wait. And as silly as that sounds, it's actually okay, because it does quite high damage, and you should be able to single shot most enemies within reason. So back to the Brak. This is non-elemental weapon, very basic setup, and this is pretty much the same setup you want to use for your all your sort of standard weapons. So things like your Lato for beginners, and your Sicaris, your Lex, all those kind of weapons, right? So you got 3 essential mods that you want on, and that is your Barrier Diffusion, Hornet Strike, Lethal Torrent. So that's like your Serration, your Split Chambers. There's never a reason not to have these 3 mods on. So furthermore, you want to add your elements. Now, as far as the ice elemental goes, for pistol it's a bit different in that a maxed ice is only 60 versus your other elementals, which is 90. So there's certain disadvantages in using that. I like to use Ice Storm just because it gives you that additional, magazine capacity. It's slightly less, so 40 versus 60% in terms of damage, but the increase in magazine capacity, which I've noticed with the Brak, and back in the days with the Acrid, is so much better, right? It gives you that extra DPS, allow you to kill that, a couple enemies that much faster. It's just better from my experience. As far as modding, elemental combo goes, it's exactly the same as your standard primary weapon. Nothing special about it. Basically, to mod these kind of weapons, you only need 5 polarities because you don't have heavy caliber on there. So 5 is enough. Brak came with 2, so I add 3 farmers to give you that sort of maximum build. A few mods worth noticing is the Magnum Force mod. So this one adds base damage, decrease accuracy, much like the heavy caliber, but unlike the heavy caliber, it gives nowhere near as much bonus in terms of damage. So basically at max capacity it gives, just doing my math, so 6 to begin with, plus 6 times 10, 60, so it should be 66% max damage. If you sync that versus your heavy caliber, which is 165, it's just not as worth it putting Magnum Force on there. It's fine either ways, because don't forget, guys, it's a massive investment up a rank 10. So if you got it, put it on. It's not bad. If you don't have it, there's a few other mods that I would rather max at this stage. Now, with your melee, I don't really want to talk about melee that much at this stage, just because Melee 2.0 is just out, and a lot of things are happening. What I will mention quickly is that the charge damage is gone now. Now is channeling damage, and what a lot of people may not realize, which I'll just quickly mention, is channel damage increase and base damage increase are two different things, right? So for base damage, so that's not channeling, you want pressure point. For channel damage, you want killing blow. These are not additive. For channel, it just takes the damage boost from killing blow, and from non-channel, it just takes the channel boost, the damage boost from pressure point. They don't, they're not interchangeable, and they don't add. So that's something to mention at this stage. And while I'm at it, I thought I'll just mention about Sentinel and the Sentinel weapon. So Sentinel weapon, it's not crit. You just do your standard build. One thing I will change is I will take out that 5th elemental mod and put in speed trigger, just because there's infinite bullet with Sentinel weapons. And as far as the Sentinel goes, my favorite is carrier, just because it just sucks stuff up without me having to walk around everything. And if you are a looter or someone that's farming, collecting, the last thing you want to do is miss loot, so carrier is definitely good. Yeah, guys, like, comment, and subscribe. If you got any suggestions or anything you don't disagree with, leave it in the comments. I'm just another player like you. I'm still learning. I have a lot of experience with the game, but I am still learning. So yeah, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.